How about I'll do this, and then we'll do that? Of course. Let's stick around, and right after, I'm here.
Hi, I'm Tina-Desiree Berg. I'm reporting for Status Coup in partnership with MeidasTouch. We are actually on the ground right now, live in Minneapolis, at the site where Alex Pretti was murdered just a few days ago. There's a vigil here that's been going 24 hours a day. I'm speaking with Congressman Khanna, who is here visiting the family, some of the victims of what's going on. We're going to talk to him a little bit about, obviously, the breaking news, and I'm going to ask you a little bit about the Epstein Files as well, since you've been first and foremost on that. But to start off, I wanted to read this to you because Trump has now pretty much sent a letter to Tim Walz that is coming across as hostage-taking in a way. He basically says if they find a way to, they will find a way to cooperate and pull back CPP if he turns over voting records, cooperates with ICE. All of these things seem like non-starters to me. What are your thoughts on all that?
Well, it's unacceptable, and he needs to come here and talk to people. They just want their lives back. Minnesotans are good people. They're hurting. They're grieving. The small businesses are closed. There's a welcoming community. They don't want federal agents on the streets shooting Americans, detaining immigrants with violating their human rights. We need the ICE agents out. We need to restore the community here. And I am going to be introducing a 10-point plan. No new funding for ICE. Repeal the $75 billion supplemental to ICE and tear down this agency and put an agency under justice with oversight. So I'm just here first and foremost to thank people in Minnesota. They are courageous. They are good people. They are loving people. They've been out here in the freezing cold. You know how cold it is. And someone told me it's too cold to snow. I hadn't heard that before. But, you know, they're out here in freezing weather with the risk of ICE officers coming, and they're out here standing up, not for themselves, but for immigrant communities. Look at the group. It's actually not many immigrants. They're here putting their lives at risk for immigrant communities. They're heroes. And I wanted to say thank you to them for being heroes to the country.
Speaking of which, I wanted to ask you, there was recently, obviously, the ICE funding bill that wound its way through the Congress. There were some Democrats that voted in favor of that. What are your thoughts on those individuals? You're sort of from the more progressive wing of the Democratic Party.
Well, we all should vote no. We shouldn't have voted no in the Senate. No, look, I think Tom Suozzi has said that he regretted that vote, and now he would vote no. I'm for let's make sure the party now unifies around an agenda. No new funding to ICE, repeal the $75 billion, tear down the agency, and start from scratch with an agency under justice. Let's come around those principles. Let's have a unified Democratic Party response. We owe it to the people here in Minnesota.
Yeah, indeed. Let's talk about that. So Department of Homeland Security, for folks that don't know, that came about after 9/11. It always was sort of set up to be a little bit of what I would call politicized law enforcement. It sort of had that feeling to it from jump. And I think we're sort of right now seeing the end game of that. So it's interesting that you say we need to get rid of it, scrap it, and build something better in its place. If we went back to the old model pre-DHS, that would mean many of the things that DHS is tasked with now used to belong to the FBI, for example. So,
well, look, we had the INS from Roosevelt, 1940, until George W. Bush. And the difference was it operated under the Justice Department. So you actually had training of the law enforcement agents. You had standards. You had accountability. Under DHS, there's no accountability. You basically have state execution, and you have the vice president saying it's absolute immunity, that they can kill any American with no consequence. That is crazy. That is not democracy. And so what I'm saying is, of course we have to enforce our immigration laws, but have the agency under the jurisdiction of the Justice Department where you have oversight and accountability like we did for decades. Now, you need better law enforcement sharing because we had 9/11 and, of course, there were breakdowns in our sharing of intelligence. But that doesn't mean that you have an agency with total impunity like we currently have with ICE.
Right. I wanted to ask you about the Renee Good situation now. So I think something happened on Friday that has very much flown under the political radar because of the news cycle being what it is currently. But one of the FBI agents here in the local Minneapolis office resigned. She was in charge of looking into the shooting. She had opened a civil rights case into looking at Jonathan Ross for what he did. But the Washington folks, I'm going to guess Kash Patel, maybe Pam Bondi, came in and said, no, we're not doing that. We're going to investigate Renee Good instead. So she's now resigned. What are your thoughts on all that?
Well, first of all, it's shameful. Pam Bondi is the one who needs to be impeached or resign, not just because she's failed to release the Epstein Files, but because of her actions when it comes to Renee Good. I mean, to blame Renee Good when we all saw that she was shot is just shameful. And the reality is you've had people from the Justice Department resign because they haven't opened up a civil rights investigation on the agent. I've said that the agent should be arrested and prosecuted. Now, it's up to a jury of how that plays out. Obviously, he has due process, but he needs to be arrested and prosecuted, and every single ICE officer who's committing these crimes needs to be arrested, needs to be prosecuted, needs to be hauled before Congress to explain themselves. There has to be accountability for the law. We have an administration where there's elite impunity, no accountability.
Yeah, no, it is a total impunity, I would say. I want to kind of sort of pivot to Border Patrol for a second. You're from California, I'm from California, so we're more familiar probably with their operations.
Right.
I think, they've now switched their definition of border to be 100 miles within any airport, which is why you're able to see Border Patrol across the country in just about every neighborhood. But they were operating this critical incident team for many years. I'm pretty sure it was shut down during the Biden administration. I don't know if it's coming back. But this was basically a team that would go in and cover up shootings that Border Patrol had engaged in. They were investigating themselves. They didn't have any sort of real internal affairs within. So I feel like Border Patrol has always been sort of a paramilitary mindset. Is there a way to reform these guys? Like, what would the future of that look like for you?
Well, we should not have Border Patrol in the heartland, in American cities. The job of Border Patrol is to keep the border safe. And when we're taking them away from the border, we're actually allowing for more terrorism, more drugs to come across the border. Have Border Patrol do what we need. Everyone in America believes we need a secure border. But what we don't need is people killing Americans, going and harassing and assaulting immigrants or paying taxes or building their lives in a community. It's wreaking havoc in this country. It's destroying a country that so many people love. This is not politics. I'm a son of immigrants. My grandfather spent 4 years in jail as part of Gandhi's independence movement, fighting for independence for India. My parents came here. I was born in Philadelphia, our bicentenary. I grew up with the belief that this was an incredible multiracial democracy, and they're destroying it with what they're doing with these ICE agents.
Yeah, let's talk about the constitutional rights now of people. Fourth Amendment. This is something that is sanctimonious to the country, to everybody that lives here, to our history, our founding fathers. And now they're basically saying they don't need to abide by the Fourth Amendment, that they can invade somebody's home based on one of their administrative warrants, which are not issued by a judge. So this is just paperwork that they issue themselves, they sign it themselves, and they've decided that they have suspicion to go do this. What are your thoughts on that? I think it's crossing a red line.
Well, they don't abide by the Fourth Amendment. They're going into people's houses and businesses and arresting people. They don't abide by the Second Amendment. They're assassinating Alex Pretti because he had a gun. That's a right under the Second Amendment. And they don't abide by the First Amendment. They're shooting people for engaging in the First Amendment right to peaceful protest. They are violating every aspect of our Bill of Rights. And that's, again, why I'm here in Minnesota, because the people here in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, are standing up for all of us. They're standing up for our Constitution. They're standing up for the First Amendment. They're standing up for the Second Amendment, for the Fourth Amendment, and they deserve the thanks. And I just want them to know from my colleagues how much appreciation we have for them, how much this nation is grateful to them.
Indeed. So let's talk about the Second Amendment for a second. Here we have a situation where... there you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. It is cold out. It's very cold out here, folks. It's very, very cold.
Thank you, ma'am.
So Pretti had a gun on him. It was a legal gun. From what I've seen from watching all these videos, I don't think that those agents would have known that he had a gun if they didn't have him on the floor and they were beating him. So it seems that became evident. He might have said, I have a gun at some point during that interaction. But the point is it was a legal gun. He never pointed it at any officer. He never pulled it or unholstered it.
Right.
Nothing he did violated anything that would be a Second Amendment protection. It was all legal. Then you see another video where the officer walks away with the gun in his hand. It looks like it might have shot into the cement. I'm not really sure. It looks possibly that that's the case. But again, nothing he did was illegal. And you have Kristi Noem and others basically saying that he was showing up there to do what did she call it? Maximum damage
she called him a terrorist. Yeah. I mean, they're calling Renee Good and Alex Pretti terrorists when they are actually trying to protect immigrants. Alex Pretti was trying to protect a woman. Read the parent's statement. And they're angry, not just at the loss of their son. Think about this. They lose their son. And then they have the president and our administration calling him a criminal. It has no shame.
So where are these guys out now? These are, sort of traditionally right-wing values that you're allowed to carry a gun, own a gun. You should do that. Something that they would have, so this is something they would have defended, I think, if it was a right-wing guy on the ground and the opposite was true. But they don't seem to be seeing how that's hypocrisy.
Well, I'm talking to some of the Republicans who are making this point, that they think this is a violation of the Second Amendment, and they see this as government overreach. And, I cooperated with Thomas Massie on the Epstein Files and worked with Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Nancy Mace, and I'm working with some Republicans to say, look, let's look at this not just as an immigration issue, as an issue of federal government overreach. You don't want federal law enforcement going after people for engaging in peaceful protest. You don't want them going after anyone who's carrying a gun. They're violating our freedoms.
Right. So Tom Homan is now coming to town, we're being told, to act as an intermediary for questioning, I believe. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't understand what he is doing here. He's head of the Border Patrol. He has no business here. There needs to be de-escalation. They need to take the ICE officers out. And they've got to start rebuilding this community. And I appeal to the president on that because he's creating division and violence. This isn't good for him. So I don't understand what bringing Tom Harmon out here is going to do.
Yeah. His popularity numbers are plummeting as we speak. I do think that we have maybe hit a red line that even the right wing is like, yeah, this is a bridge too far.
The New York Post is saying this has gone too far. It's gone too far.
It's definitely gone too far.
They're killing American citizens. No one signed up for this. No one who voted for him thought they would be killing a 37-year-old American nurse.
Let's switch a second here to the Epstein Files. You brought that up with Tom Massie. You have been at the lead of getting these released. So they promised they were going to release these documents. They've only released a small percentage of them. The ones they have released are heavily, heavily redacted.
Right.
And they're now dragging their feet. So, A, what's your thought on that? What's your next move in regards to that? And then the second part of that is this going to be the thing that gets the MAGA folks out of their cult?
Well, this again is about elite impunity, right? It's a group of people who raped underage girls from working class families who face no consequences. Now, you got ICE officers who are killing working class people facing no consequences. We need accountability in this country. I do believe that the Epstein class needs to go and be held accountable, and Thomas Massie and I will achieve this. We're in federal court arguing for this. The survivors are in federal court. I've talked to the survivors' lawyers. Our actions now are forcing some further releases that will take place over the next 2 weeks. And we're going to keep at it to get the survivors' statements where they talk about the other rich and powerful men who raped them, to get the statements of who else was involved. The American people are going to be horrified when it comes out that powerful politicians, powerful financiers raped underage girls. It's horrific.
Including Trump. Is this the dog wagging its tail? Is this him trying to form some sort of distraction from, what we're seeing right now here in Minneapolis? Is it a form of distraction from that?
Well, look, I don't want to engage in speculation, and what happened here is terrible in its own right. But what I'll say that links that with the Epstein Files is this sense that the elites have a different set of rules, that they can get away with a different set of justice. And this country has to have justice. In Deuteronomy 16, it says, justice, justice thou shalt have. We need justice in this country.
Insurrection Act. Is this a prelude to that? We've heard Trump sort of threaten that multiple times now in various circumstances. Are we inching closer to that? Is that the end game? Some
Well,
people are speculating that that is the end game. What are your thoughts?
I hope we have a de-escalation. I'm glad that President Trump and Governor Walz had a conversation. I hope it leads to these ICE agents leaving. There is no justification for an insurrection. I look at the streets in Minneapolis. Does this look like an insurrection? I mean, you know, people should come here and meet the people. There is no insurrection going on. It's a patently absurd thing. I wouldn't fly into Minneapolis if there was some kind of insurrection. I mean, come on.
Yeah, they do tend to exaggerate. I'm sorry? That's fine. Okay, sorry, folks. So something in your wheelhouse has been constantly talking about how income inequality is something that the Democratic Party should be addressing. I want to sort of tie that into what's going on right now with the Trump administration. I think one of the biggest drivers of what we're seeing of some of the increase in fascism is because people are struggling financially. We did not give them what I would call a left exit to income inequality in the country, so they turned to this populist demagogue on the right who is not delivering on anything he promised, let's be clear. So how does all of that get fixed? This is something I think you've talked a lot about.
Well, I call for a new economic patriotism. What does that mean? We need a Marshall Plan for America, good-paying jobs everywhere that are either new advanced factory jobs, new technology jobs, new jobs in the care economy. We need a living wage. We need Medicare for all. The health care costs are out of control. We need child care at $10 a day. We need the billionaires and the ultra-wealthy paying tax so that we can make sure every American has a chance at the American dream. We need an FDR-like moment, a bold new economic vision where people actually get to participate and have success in life. And we've seen the kind of anti-immigrant sentiment before. During the Great Depression, we had the INS, which we talked about, deporting Mexicans and deporting Mexican citizens because of the economic anxiety. And I feel that a lot of the economic anxiety is contributing to the anti-immigrant sentiment that we feel. A bold FDR-like moment for our times will address that and prevent an ugly right-wing nationalism.
Indeed. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Great to see
Good to see you.
Thank you.
So we were just speaking with Congressman Khanna. We are here at the site of Alex Pretti's vigil. I'm going to ask John to kind of spin around here so you can see what's going on.
Thank you. Yes.
This has been like a 24/7 vigil that they've put up here in place. There's been protesters out here all day and all night. They're trying to sort of keep it protected so it doesn't get taken down. It's a beautiful memorial to Alex Pretti. One of the things that Rep. Khanna touched on just now was the income inequality that we're seeing in the country. Although the Democratic Party has been talking about making affordability an issue of the midterm elections, and I think they should do that and can do that. But I'm also hearing from a lot of folks, and I understand this, that it shouldn't be the sole issue, that what is going on here with ICE operations, what's going on here with Pam Bondi, with Border Patrol and all of these things is also something that needs to be addressed. Obviously, we were at a protest last night that got pretty crazy at the end. Border Patrol came in. I believe it was Border Patrol at least. There were federal prison law enforcement there as well. And they pretty much went ham on a small group that was left there. Most of the protesters had left and kind of went nuts with the press that was still there. So obviously they don't feel like they're going to be held accountable for anything they say or do, and that they can get away with violating all kinds of constitutional rights, which Khanna also brought up a little bit. Also, I want to ask you guys to join as a member. If you're not a member of Status Coup, it is your membership that allows us to be out here on the street reporting. Your membership pays for our travel expenses, hotels, our live view, and whatever else. So, another guy's live over here. So we would appreciate you joining if you can. Thank you for joining us today for Khanna's interview. We will be going live maybe a little bit later at another protest. So make sure that you are subscribed and hit the bell so you get a notification. And it's very cold out here, so I'm going to sign out. Thank you for joining. Tina-Desiree Berg reporting for Status Coup in partnership with MeidasTouch.